seem to be idealists and are overestimating, overrating man, and looking at him that high, here above, you know what happens? We promote him to what he really can be. So we have to be idealists in a way, because then we'll wind up as the true, the real realists. And you know who has said this? If we take man as he is, we make him worse. But if we take man as he should be, we make him capable of becoming what he can be. This was not my flight instructor, this was not me, this was Goethe. He said this verbally.
And of us here today have been blessed with many resources and opportunities. And we want to give back to society. We often think of this giving back in terms of how we're going to change the world, or make an impact, or alleviate poverty, or add value to the economy. These are noble aims, but I think they are slightly misguided. We often talk as if people are just another project we need to work on, or even worse, a problem we need to solve. On the contrary, realistic idealism is about seeing people first and foremost as people.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is AQILAH SHAFIQAH binti HANAFI. My student ID is 2023393329. So I will start the presentation with the introduction of idealism historically. The idealism theory was developed in the framework of the study of philosophy, which is mainly concerned with theories and evolution. Idealism is derived from the word idea, which comes from the Greek word idealismos. Idealism is one of the early schools of thought that highlight the supremacy of the mind, soul, or attitude. In the 18th century, the term idealism was first used as a philosophical word according to Encyclopedia 2018. According to Robinson 2019, among the great idealists of the past are Plato, Plotinus, Spinoza, and Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz. Despite that, various scholars have introduced and developed idealism as philosophical schools over the ages. It does not have one particular point of origin or introduction. In this slide, I will present the idealism theory in international relations. Idealism refers to the concept that moral or ethical values should lead to the international interactions rather than power or its own self-interest. Idealists argue that international organizations should seek to promote peace, justice, and human rights, and that international cooperation and the rule of law are crucial to attain those objectives. According to Slater 2011, the fundamental concept of idealism is that individual states' national characteristics matter in relationship with other nations. This means that all states need to cooperate with other countries despite the contradictions of ideologies in governance or different self-interests. Besides, idealism advocates for bettering the present state of international relations by eliminating war, poverty, inequality, tyranny, force, suppression, and violence. The opposing view of the right to war is the foundation of the doctrine idealists, such as Grotius, Kant, and Bentham, since they believe it is possible to construct a government capable of keeping peace. Other than that, idealism differs from the realism theory, which is another popular theory in international relations that prioritizes power, self-interest, and the competitive aspect of international politics.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Siti IZZAH binti HUSAIN. I would like to present about the assumption from the philosopher. According to the first philosopher, which is Kant, say that the civil constitution of every state should be republican. The law of world citizenship shall be limited to condition of universal hospitality, and the law of the nation shall be founded on the federation of free states. International law purposes to give peaceful and harmony to the all country and give the justice. Every country has to obey the international law. This implies that trade among states creates an environment where actors will be less likely to go to war. It will be a process that brings economic. Then every state should be function within a democratic system with checks and balances, and that there should be a world federation that will facilitate cooperation among the states. The development and evolution of a global order predicated primarily on the idea that one only significant participants in the international system are independent sovereign nations is reflected in the international law. According to the Goldstein and Playhouse say that the idealism emphasizes international law, morality, and the international organization rather than the power alone as key influence on international events. An international organization is an establishment that operates across many nations. It has members from at least 3 states and is bound together by a written agreement. The coordinating body, the Union of International Associations, made a distinction between the non-governmental organization (NGO) whose members are associations or individuals and the international governmental organization (IGO), which are members of states that have been established by the intergovernmental agreement. The purpose of the international government are to discuss, pressure, and influence the country that have any issue. They will advise about environment, health, security, and more. For example, the United Nations has meeting every year to discuss about the sustainable development for every country. Next is according from the third philosopher, which is Wilson, say they believe that the spread of education will empower world public opinion and make it a powerful force that no government can resist. Education and its role in creating a better world. This is because the education will help people to change their life. The new generation will be the line of the government of the country nowadays that provide education to the citizens for encourage them to pursue their study. By finding high quality education, we can make sure the generation can afford better lifestyle for themselves and their families by giving them access to higher paying profession. We are spending money on the next generation. Achieving many other sensible development goals, which is SDG, will depend on the education. People can escape the circle of poverty when they have access to high quality education. Lastly, the assumption from the same philosopher Wilson say that they believe that the spread of democracy, including increasing democratic control of foreign policy. Democracies acknowledge the role non-state entities plays in the development and execution of national policy, particularly foreign policy. They have participated in the cooperative definition of foreign policy objective within the parameters of constructive involvement. The emergent non-state actor, which includes civil society organization, among others, is one of the main effects of democracy. Foreign policy concerns are increasingly brought to the attention of non-state players as democratic process progress. They pay greater attention to the international policy concern, as well the individual and the organization that are engaged in formulating foreign policy, as their interest and the understanding of this matter grow.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is SYUHADA binti AMRAN. My matric number is 2023105187. I will present about analysis on idealism theory. According to Kant 1795, the civil constitutions of every state should be republican. The law of world citizenship shall be limited to conditions of universal hospitality, and the law of nations shall be founded on a federation of free states. Based on the main point, international law is a set of rules and principles that govern the relations and conduct of sovereign states with each other, as well as with international organizations and individuals. Among the issues included under international law are human rights, war crime, diplomacy, environmental protections, and trade. Among the bodies that are responsible for this issue are the United Nations and the World Trade Organization. International law make countries follow a certain practice because they feel a legal obligations. For example, most countries have agreed to a ban on genocide and some horrific form of torture. So, international law is in line with idealism, which is to promote peace and order between a country. Idealism not only emphasizes power alone as an influence on international relations. However, idealism also emphasizes international law, morality, and international organizations where this global law is seen as important in controlling peace and conflict. International relations can exist in the form of culture, economy such as trading firms, organizations, or individuals. For example, the United Nations is an intergovernmental organization that aims to maintain international peace and security, achieve international cooperation. Idealism sees world peace can be achieved through the outlawing of war and the abolition of weapons. International organizations such as the UN will take over the role of peacekeepers through international agreements and laws. And the World Trade Organizations, which deal with the regulations of trade between countries. Therefore, international cooperation and avoiding violence is a base for the country itself and more rational. Thirdly, according to Wilson 2012, they believe that the spirit of education will empower world public opinion and make it a powerful force that no government can resist. Idealists argue that education plays an important role in discovering and developing the abilities of each individual and emphasizes education to be accessible to all. Sustainable Development Goals, known as SDGs, consist of 17 goals presented by the United Nations in the United Nations General Assembly. Among these 17 goals, there is a goal that emphasizes quality education, which promotes lifelong learning for everyone. Malaysia is one of the serious players in achieving the SDG goals. For example, the Malaysian Education Development Plan PPPM 2013 until 2025 is in line with the aspiration and visions of the Sustainable Development Goals SDG 4, which is aimed at providing a quality education system to ensure effective learning outcomes by providing a relevant skills and knowledge to meet a country's aspirations. Fourthly, according to Wilson 2012, they believe that the spirit of democracy, including increasing democracy control of foreign policy. Most countries in the world has practiced democracy. Among the countries that practice it are countries such as Norway, Ireland, Sweden, and Malaysia. Democracy is an important ideology that is held by most countries in the world. This is because democracy promotes peace and freedom for its people, which is different from a communism, which is restrict individual freedom like North Korea. Alright, so democracy and idealism come in one package because both uphold a justice for all and value peace and cooperation. For example, in Malaysia, we practice a parliamentary democratic system which is aware that the power of the people is to choose a representative to represent them in political and legal affairs to fight for their rights.
Assalamualaikum. My name is TENGKU and I will describe the impacts of idealism towards international relations. Firstly, idealism contributed to emphasizing the importance of diplomacy and peaceful conflict resolutions between nations.
For example, in United Nations, there is the role played by diplomacy in resolving the crisis over North Korea's nuclear program. In 2018, tensions between North Korea and the United States were high, with both countries threatening military action. However, through a series of diplomatic efforts, a summit between North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and US President Donald Trump was held, resulting in a joint statement committing to the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Secondly, idealism recognized the role of economic interdependence in promoting peace and cooperation. One example is the World Trade Organization (WTO). The WTO operates on the principle of non-discrimination, meaning that all member countries are treated equally in terms of trade policies. By reducing trade barriers, the WTO has helped to increase economic ties between nations, creating mutual benefits and reducing the likelihood of conflict. For instance, the WTO played a key role in resolving a trade dispute between the United States and China in 2019. The dispute centered around tariffs imposed by both countries on each other's goods. Through negotiations facilitated by the WTO, the two countries were able to reach a temporary truce, avoiding further escalations of the conflict. And the last one, idealists advocate for the spread of democracy and the protections of human rights as key elements in achieving a more peaceful and just world. International organizations such as the United Nations and the International Criminal Court (ICC) promote these ideals by providing a forum for countries to discuss and address issues related to the democracy and human rights. The UN has several bodies that focus on promoting democracy and human rights, including the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights and the Democracy Fund. The ICC is responsible for investigating and prosecuting individuals who commit genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes. The ICC has been instrumental in holding the individuals accountable for human rights abuses. For instance, in 2012, the ICC convicted former Liberian President Charles Taylor of war crimes and crimes against humanity committed during the civil war in Sierra Leone. This sent a strong message that leaders who commit human rights abuse will be held accountable for their actions.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. My name is Siti NURAIN FARZANA binti ISMAIL, and I am going to conclude this presentation. In a nutshell, idealism is a branch of philosophy that puts a strong emphasis on pursuing justice and peace. Idealism theory is derived from the word idea, which comes from the Greek word which is idealismos. In the context of international relations, idealism claims that all nations should coexist together peacefully despite having different ideologies. Such differences should never be a reason that leads any country to conflict. Furthermore, the theory of idealism believed that actions such as developing nuclear weapons, committing genocide, and war would never be able to solve problems. Such acts will only result in more negative outcomes, particularly among the nations involved. Among the basic assumptions of idealism is no one is above the law, morality must be upheld, every citizen must be educated, and democracy should be spread across the world. Moreover, the idealism doctrine advocates for peaceful problem-solving method over the use of force. There are three impacts of idealism in the international relation context. Firstly, idealism emphasizes the importance of diplomacy and peaceful conflict resolution between nations. Secondly, the idealism theory recognizes the role of economic interdependence in promoting peace and cooperation. And the last impact of idealism is idealist advocates for the spread of democracy. Therefore, the theory of idealism rejects the use of force and violence, since this theory believes that everything should be solved in a peaceful manner. That's all from us. Thank you for listening.